black represents the darkness from which we came. The white represents the light in which we now live. And the red represents the passion it takes to live recovered on purpose.
Guys, I'm super excited to introduce you today to our special guest, and she is the co-founder of Mindvalley, an author and a speaker. And today we have Kristina Mindvalley, and super excited to introduce her to you guys. Thank you so much for being here, Kristina.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, and I've been following Mindvalley for a while. There's a lot of great ideas coming from there, and it was started in 2003, correct?
Yes.
Awesome. So what inspired you to start that company? What was the vision and the mission statement of it?
So yes, the company did start with an inspiration, but my own journey into company was different. I actually ended up there a little bit by accident and a little bit reluctantly. In 2003, I got married to Vishen, who is the founder of Mindvalley and the face of Mindvalley, the more famous founder of Mindvalley. So that was his passion, and it was his side project at that time because he was still pursuing his traditional career. I had moved out of Europe where I grew up, and in between trying to find myself, still thinking I'll do something else, I tagged along to help Vishen with his side project, which ended up growing into Mindvalley. So yes, that's how I ended up there. But to look at it from Vishen's point of view, then of course he has been interested in personal growth ever since he started reading. So for him, it was a passion project. Yes.
Awesome. And I know part of the mission, you want to reach 500 million people. Is that correct? Am I right when I say that?
If we haven't adjusted the number to 1 billion.
Okay, awesome. And what does it mean to impact those 500 million or 1 billion people? What would be the outcome you would want them to have?
That's, on one side, I'd like to give you a diplomatic answer to that, but some part of me wants to say that, the mission of the company doesn't come directly from its founders, because after functioning as a Mindvalley, as this mission, as this movement, at some point you realize that your thing is bigger than yourself, and the thing that you're doing actually has a life of its own, and part of that life of its own is that it's influenced by everyone who gets in touch with Mindvalley. So that mission of touching 1 billion lives, on one side, it's a mission which is shared by people who work for us, with us, who are the people who are our partners, our authors, our audience. And on the other side, touching 1 billion lives exactly means that we are all co-creators in this one movement. And I know it's a little more abstract answer, but I just hope 1 billion is because it's a tipping point. You touch 1 billion lives and the humanity starts changing. But what I personally hope is that we as humanity will learn to be a little bit more happy and content with what we have, and value what we have, and a little bit less aggressive and violent towards each other.
Yeah, I would love that also. And something you said there, I'm experiencing in this movement as well, because originally, I founded Recovered on Purpose with the mission to help addicts in recovery share their stories to reach addicts out there suffering. And then while it grew and while people were reaching out and these different things happening, it morphed into, right before we got on this podcast, I'm talking to a mother who just lost her son. I'm talking to, addicts that are struggling, like specifically like doing this work with them. And it morphed into a nonprofit being able to do all these different things within this space. And it was all based on the people that started to come in and tell what they needed, basically. And everybody in this following is amazing as well. So what was the most difficult obstacle that you've overcome in life, and how did you do it?
I think I'm still overcoming my obstacles. I do want to comment a little bit on what you were telling about your work. I think it would be wonderful if we people who are not directly connected to the problem of addiction could know more about your movement and the things that you teach, because one of the very profound lessons that I learned in my life, and which helps me in everyday life, like non-addiction related situations, is actually something that comes from your line of work. It's the idea of keeping your light on for the people who are struggling in your life, who rather than going and fixing them, actually just having their back no matter what all the time. And I think it's wonderful. It's like if you know how to help people who are suffering so much, then that knowledge is something that we as humanity generally need. So I do hope you go wider than just your community. My own personal struggles, they always exist, but I think it's so interesting. I'm 44, and I think my journey has been 44 years of discoveries and realizations and overcoming problems, and it's a never-ending journey. But I've never had like a dramatic point of, okay, my life is now very different. Although maybe somebody wouldn't agree with me. I was born in Soviet Union, and then it collapsed and the whole world went upside down. And then I moved to US and I had to reinvent myself. So there have been such situations, but I want to quote Gandalf here. We don't choose the times that we live in, but we choose what to do with those times. So maybe I've never chosen to see them as some crazy situations.
Yeah, and I think that's actually profound, and that's the idea I was looking for. When something comes up to you, if it's a difficulty, if it's a mountain you have to climb or something, how do you look at it instead of looking at it as something that is, a difficult obstacle or something you can't overcome? How do you look at these things that come at you?
So here I'd like to quote Habecker, who is a wonderful teacher, although he does teach about money, not about psychology, but he says there are no big problems, there are just little you. So if your problem is too big, that's a sign that you have to grow. The moment you grow, your problem stops being so big. So I guess we have to qualify what a problem means, because there are situations at work which may be challenging, which may be scary, which is definitely an invitation for you to grow. And for example, I'm in the middle of a very intense work week right now, which is challenging me on so many levels. But I understand that it's an opportunity to grow. It's not the situation which is going to leave like some painful mark on my life. Yet there are situations where you lose something which is very dear to you. For example, you lose a person that you love, or you lose the will to live, or whatever. We don't know. And such kind of problems are completely different. They need different approach and different help. And I would say that the one lesson that I've learned in life is that you have to ask for help, especially if you don't know how to help yourself. And humanity has come up with solutions for almost any human situation in life. So just ask for help.
Yes. And something that there's two things here. One thing, when we're talking about asking for help, a lot of us in recovery, a lot of us addicts in recovery at one point learned we had to find help. We had to ask for help in order to, get rid of this addiction or move past this addiction. But then in our recovery, we lose that knowledge that we can ask for help for all these other things in our life. So you ask for help when you need something, and have you been through drug addiction?
No, I haven't, and I haven't had very close contact with that. I've had a friend. I've lost a friend to drug addiction, but it was a long time ago, and I didn't go through that like with conscious understanding of what was going on. But I think we not to that degree, but I know that there are a lot of addictable people around us. Some people get addicted to things which are ruining their bodies and their health and their life. Other people get addicted to things which seemingly are actually good to you, but they still are addictions by my definition, because we run away into these things from the problems which we don't have the courage to face. And even my niche, my line of work, we have addicts in our line of work, but they're addicts of, let's say, yoga or meditation or exercises or whatever, because it's good to do all those things. It's good. But if you do it to not deal with other things in your life, then it becomes an addiction in a way, right? So no, I haven't had experience with addiction which requires actually serious help, because I think drug addiction is not just psychological, it's a medical problem as well. So I haven't had that experience. But I think we as humanity should be a little bit more open to to discuss such things, because there's so much to learn. And a person who hasn't been addicted to alcohol or cigarettes or drugs, they will still learn tons.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's profound that you're talking about, being able to grow through these lessons. And when things come at you, look at them as an opportunity to grow. I was just talking about this on a podcast. If, in our recovery, we have something coming at us, some kind of mountain that's ahead of us, we need to do something in order to become a certified addictions counselor. We need to do something to climb this mountain that's in life. It's not something that's holding us back. It's actually something God might even put in front of us in order to grow us as a person, because we have to become the person that overcomes obstacles like that in order to overcome that obstacle.
Mm-hmm.
And you recently published a book, am I right?
Yes.
Live by Your Own Rules.
I am about to publish.
Okay.
Not publish yet. I finished a manuscript, and it's been a long process. It's a book about finding your way back to you, about finding yourself again.
So what inspired you to write that?
That's, what inspired is a very interesting question. I started writing it because I just couldn't hold it back. It's like, and I know men probably can't relate, but when a woman is pregnant, when she's about to deliver, she can't hold the baby back. Yeah. She has to deliver because it's coming. So that book, it just came out of me. I couldn't not write it. But of course, it's inspired by my own experience of realizing at the age of 40, in the middle of my absolutely perfect inspirational life. I checked all the right boxes. I was the perfectionist. Yeah. I was the good girl and that type of person. Yeah. And I discovered that despite all of that, I just don't feel happy, and in fact I feel lost. And there was this experience in my life when I realized that I had lost myself. It was such a strange thing. My friend told me, I was traveling, and when I came back, my friend said, "Oh, I missed you," and I said, "I missed me too." And I said it, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks, because I thought, what did I just say? Did I say I missed me? But that's the thing. You live your life, you live the motions of your life, but you're not there. And that's what started me on that journey of asking and searching. And sometimes when you lose yourself, you find something wonderful instead while you're looking for yourself.
Amen. And something I wanted to ask about this topic is, a lot of people, and specifically when I'm talking about addicts, right, or addicts in recovery, a lot of people will take on and own an identity that they learned from either friends, family, community, or society at large. How can someone that is struggling with owning an identity that might not be serving them, how can they put this identity to the side and find their true, authentic self?
Journey back to oneself is a long one to unpack. I normally talk to people who realize that they're lost. When you are still identifying yourself with a certain identity, you need to make some steps before you acknowledge that, yes, I have to go searching for myself. And these steps may be hard. First of all, giving up an identity is a painful experience for most people, because most of us think that if we give up an identity, we give up a part of ourselves. Or let's say if that identity has been formed over a certain amount of years, it feels like we are like we are scratching off those years. For example, I was married to, I mentioned Vishen, I think, in the beginning of the podcast, to this wonderful human for 16 years, and then we divorced. And my identity as his wife ended. And of course, there was this temptation to question if the 16 years had been thrown away. You know how it is. Yeah. You give up a part of you, and you think that you're giving up the whole history that led to that part. So giving up identity is so hard, and I can see it. I'll give an example which is a little more understandable to me. there is a war between two countries that I know quite well, Russia and Ukraine. And I know a lot of people from both countries. And a lot of that conflict is tied into people's identities and seeing the situation clearly, seeing the absurdity, not absurdity, absurdity is a light word for that, but the crazy of the situation, the insanity, requires you to give up a certain identity and to just allow yourself to admit that you might have been wrong.
Yeah.
And it is such a hard thing to do, not because you can't admit that you're wrong, but because you're afraid that if I admit that I'm wrong, that everything that has led me up to that has been wasted time.
Wow.
So that is a struggle which is hard sometimes to overcome for people. We cling on to those identities for the rest of the life because they're familiar, and our brain likes familiarity. And as unpleasant as it is, we feel safe there. That's why people stay in abusive relationships. That's why people go from one abusive relationship to another one, because they know what they're dealing with. It's comfortable.
Yeah.
And something new is so scary, so daunting. That's why we stay in jobs that we hate. So that is one thing. Now, where did that identity come from? There's a much deeper and scary thing. Was it really pushed on you by the society? Or was there some point in your life when you gave into that and assumed it? And was there a point in your life where it wasn't the people who said that I don't know, you're a loser, you're dumb, you're in my case, people say I'm angry or whatever. Or was there a point in your life when you called that yourself? And then you merged with that word that has been thrown at you, because people throw all sorts of things at us. Do you have to agree with them? Do you have to say that this is my identity now? Or is it your decision that, yes, maybe they're right, and yes, that's what I am? And that is a hard thing to do, because that requires taking on responsibility for your choice. And our image in the world is actually, it starts from our image of ourselves. Yeah. And that's the hard thing to agree with, because we truly teach the world how to treat us. It's you decide first who you are, and with that opinion about yourself, you go out into the world and you teach people how to treat you. And to be a little bit more practical, I've been in personal growth for 20 years, and I've seen the most wonderful teachers, authors, speakers on stage, on our stages, years after years after years. And some of them I know personally before they go on stage. And I've seen speakers who are wonderful teachers, who are wise, who are beautiful, but they have stage fright. They go on stage and they come across as weak speakers. They're not. They're not, but that's what they believe in themselves, because they allow this doubt to be, they allow this doubt to come on stage together with themselves. Yeah. And then I've seen people who just believe in themselves, and no matter how shallow they might be, but they make the world believe in them too.
I love that. And we teach the people around us how to treat us, like what we're willing to accept in our lives, what we're willing to, allow people to treat us like, is basically how we're showing up, right?
Yes.
And what do you think it's more powerful to, just believe in yourself, or to really attach to some kind of identity in forms of like affirmation, or speaking it into yourself, or, really defining what a word about yourself means? And basically when I'm asking these questions, I'm specifically talking about something that a lot of us call ourselves is an addict. Obviously I went through a time in my life, a period of my life, where I was an addict. I was an active addict. Yeah. I couldn't stop using drugs. And now in my recovery, I never refer to myself as that word unless I say I'm a recovered addict, in order to let people know that I've been there, right? But I don't associate with that word. And I was just having,
So since I'm not a professional in that field, I wouldn't dare to say that don't do that, because as I understand it from a distance, acknowledging that you're an addict is one of the steps towards actually going and asking for help and going on this recovery path. But then do you have to stay a recovered addict for the rest of your life?
Yeah, 100%.
As a human being, I would say, please don't. because
Yeah.
I was born in Soviet Union and I've been so many things. And addict is not a very empowering identity. There are
Yeah.
things that I cannot recover from. I am perfectionist forever. I can learn to live with that.
Yeah.
You know, I am, there are a lot of things. Perfectionism is an easy thing. There are a lot of things about myself which are uncomfortable, and I know that I can't recover from that. So I have a choice. Am I going to make it my curse or my blessing? So it's a hard topic, but I would guess that if you are through that journey, I would guess that it's more empowering to take that side of your experience, which is going to serve you in the future, and leave behind the side which didn't serve you. So if you're a recovered addict, you're a survivor. You're a person who has overcome something so massive. You're a winner, right? So I would rather take that identity with me. But again, I'm not a professional. Maybe I'm making a blunder somewhere.
No, I love this. And this line is actually incredible to me to dive into, because the reason why I say that I do have to, remind myself of that for the rest of my life. I don't want to take on an identity of an addict because I don't want to act like an addict. I'm not an addict anymore. But at the same time, if I was to take a drink of alcohol, or, a little bit of cocaine, or any form of substance into my body, the phenomenon of craving would trigger no matter where I'm at in my life, and I would go right back into addiction. That's just kind of how the disease works. But I'm still looking for a way that we can, in this community, allow ourselves to have that past and move forward to this totally beautiful new life in recovery, unperturbed by the past. Because if we lift it up as a recovery community on purpose, on mission, we were not thinking about relapsing anymore. We had this purpose in our life that we were waking up to do every single day. We would be able to actually come together and help a lot of the people out there struggling, because we're losing over 100,000 people in America alone right now to drug overdose. And there's no shortage of professionals. There's no shortage of doctors, treatment centers, people working on it. But in my experience, the people that actually make the most impact on addicts out there struggling are addicts who have recovered.
Of course,
So
yes.
How can we think about, ourselves in a way where we know the past, but we lost ourselves in our addiction?
Yeah.
How do we re-find our authentic self and our dreams and our passions and our goals in our recovery to get out there and help?
Oh, it's a tough question for me to answer, of course, because it is a serious problem, and it's not to be taken lightly. For myself, and my vices have not maybe been this destructive, although I've struggled with smoking for a while. I have never been like a heavy smoker, but I know how hard it is sometimes to give up a destructive habit. I'm lucky. I've given up smoking twice in my life, completely. Twice because after a 10-year break, I actually taught myself back to smoke for whatever stupid reason it was. So I know that it is the struggle is real, but with the topics that I usually cover, we all have dragons. We all have dragons, and it's usually the things that we don't dare to talk about, that we don't, that we're ashamed of, not in front of the world, but in front of ourselves. We are ashamed to tell ourselves certain things. So when you discover those dragons, we usually are tempted to kill them and to eradicate them, and to pretend that they never existed, to force them out of our existence, of our system. But sometimes they are an integral part of who we are. And until we have the courage to face them and to see how those dragons, or those qualities about ourselves that we don't like, how they have made us into what we are, you're never going to recover, really. For me, it's not about pretending that they like killing the dragon and pretending like it was never there, but it's about learning to live with it, learning to harness it, learning to not let it ruin your life. Acknowledge that it is there and it is always going to be there, but rather than fighting you, I can learn to live with you. So when it comes to very traumatic and painful experiences, I think Viktor Frankl, he's an author of a book. He's a psychologist and an author of a book, Man's Search for Meaning. Yes, he says, and I'm paraphrasing, that suffering ceases to be suffering once it finds meaning. So no matter how scary that dragon is, if you find what is the deeper meaning that it carries for you in your life, it is so much easier to just accept it and just to be at peace with it. And I think our struggles are because there are two states. There is a state of resistance and there's a state of letting go and just trusting and flowing. And whenever we resist, we don't allow the other state. So whenever we fight something about ourselves, it's resistance. And in physics, the force that you apply, the response is exactly as strong. So the more you fight something, the more it fights you back. But again, because addiction is such a specific and complicated thing, I may be too too naive in that aspect. But I do believe that it is okay to acknowledge that, yes, I have this in my dungeon, and this thing will always live there, but I'm at peace with that, and I'm okay to move on with that being in my dungeon forever.
Yeah, and I really appreciate the way that you're showing up in this conversation and taking it as a serious topic. And I want to let you know that we, even in our recovery, the way that our minds operate and the way that we're able to get back into life is the same as everybody else. And I believe that with every single part of me, that we don't have to tiptoe around in life like we're walking on eggshells. Because I believe once and for all, somebody in recovery that wants to live a beautiful life has just as much an opportunity as anybody else that didn't go through addiction. Like, if I have body cam footage of when the police found me dead from an overdose with no breath, no pulse, eyes wide open, and that was 7 years ago. And today I'm totally different. I'm 65 pounds heavier. I'm total best-selling author, video podcasts, all this different stuff. And I believe that what I'm doing is 100% possible for everybody else. And the whole point of why we do this Recovered on Purpose show is to introduce this community to the same conversations that people are having outside of addiction, as if we don't have to walk on eggshells around us anymore, because it's out in the open now. We are out in the open. We are recovering. We do recover. Right.
Yeah, I wish we as a society was so much easier about talking about so many topics like addiction or grieving. We regular human beings, we don't know how to be next to people who are grieving. It's uncomfortable. So or pain. How do you go through painful, traumatic experiences? We don't talk about any of that. They're uncomfortable. We feel uncomfortable, and as a result, we pretend that there is a possibility that world will be rosy and rainbows and butterflies and nothing bad will ever happen if you just keep personal growth and transformation going. No, there's no guarantee. There's always going to be stuff happening. So rather than rather than hiding our heads in the sand, we should face it and learn how to cope with such situations rather than pretend that we can eradicate them from existence.
Yes. And we have to do it together. That's
the
main thing that I believe, is that if there was less fighting about what's right and what's wrong and more coming together about how to use this and this together, we'd be able to solve a whole lot of different, societal issues right now. And my focus just happens to be addiction right now, because it's a big one and I want to help my people.
It's a wonderful idea. And as I was talking to you, I was wondering, what if we are a little bit too cautious about people who are going through a lot of suffering?
Yes.
What if they're not made of glass? What if
Yes.
an advice that they need is not the traditional advice? I do not know who is out there to say, I don't dare to defy the rules. But on the other hand, I do invite everybody to just question everything and ask, is this serving me or do I need something else?
Amen. I love that so much. And that's actually what saved me, was when somebody stopped babying me and saying, it's going to be okay, Adam, you'll make it through this. Like, nah, Adam, you're going to die if you don't do this. And then I did this, and here I am. And that's what I believe is possible for everyone. So I have one more question for you. I want to respect your time, and I appreciate you being here so much. How do you define success right now? And what does success look like for you in 5 years?
It's an interesting question. I get it quite a lot, and I always give the very unsatisfying answer. I believe in calling phenomena by their real names. And I'm a little bit, I disagree with the society trying to stretch the idea of success onto everything and to make it such a thin yet massive explanation. Society understands success in a very straightforward way. There are two ways of success: success financial and success professional, where you achieve certain heights as a professional. It might not be financially very successful. But we want to add happiness and fulfillment into that. Yet happiness and fulfillment are completely different phenomena. And when we try to push them in the success umbrella, we kind of take away the power from those things. And we live in a society which actually tells you don't chase happiness. And we feel guilty or ashamed if we want to be happy. We feel guilty and ashamed if we announce that, you know, I've made an experiment. I've told people that my goal for the next year is to be happy, and people thought I'm as shallow as can be. The other problem is that it also allows us to escape from facing the reality of not being successful, either financially or professionally, by saying that, oh no, but I have friends and I enjoy my whatever. I'm successful by my definition. No, let's call things by their names. Success is just success. Do I think that success is more important than happiness? No, I don't think so. I think happiness is immensely important. And that's why I insist that we stop calling success everything that we like.
I love that. I love that so much. Kristina, thank you so much for being here. Guys, drop in the comments, drop some love for her. Thank you for being here, everybody. Hope you got value out of this. If you did, make sure you're sharing this out to your communities. We had a great conversation about the identity and about finding your true self. Kristina, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for this conversation. It was a pleasure and challenging enough for me to actually truly enjoy it. So thank you so much.
Good. Amen.